So there are around 300 pesticides which are commonly used in India, and out of them, 30 are banned.
For example, we used to use DDT before. Now it is banned. Chlorpyrifos, which is used, one of the most commonly used pesticide today, is already banned in few countries.
ಸೊ ಈ ಕಾಲಿಫ್ಲವರ್ ಕ್ಯಾಬೇಜ್ ಈ ವೆಜಿಟೇಬಲ್ಸ್ ಬೆಳೆಸುವಾಗ ತುಂಬಾ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ಸ್ ಹಾಕ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಓದಿದ್ದೆ.
ಈ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ಸ್ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಕಂಪ್ನಿದು ನಾವೇನೋ ಓದ್ತೀವಿ, ಅಂಗಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, ಅವರು ನೋಡು ಎಲೆ ಚುಕ್ಕೆ ರೋಗ ಬಂದಿದೆ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಬೂದಿ ಬಂದೈತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಹುಳು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇದು ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗೈತೆ ಅಂತಾರೆ.
ಈಗ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಂಪಲ್ಸರಿ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾವ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀರಾ, ಎಷ್ಟು ರೆಸಿಡ್ಯೂ ಇದೆ.
ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸರ್ ಬರ್ತದೋ ಇಲ್ಲ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಬರ್ತದ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ನಾನ್ ಬೆಳೆ ಬೆಳಿಬೇಕು.
And however careful you are, you will end up buying mangoes which are ripened using calcium carbide. Once you see the impact of using chemicals and fertilizers, you will definitely not have a thought of getting back into the chemical based farming.
When they claim it is organic, how do you really know it's organic?
A perfect example could be like if you see a cockroach at home, a big cockroach, try to spray hit on it. You will find that cockroach would definitely lay egg before it dies.
At the user end, I would love to see that, behind the packet, is they mention that this was the pesticide used, this was the maximal permissible limit.
There are bandicoot rats at every stage who wants to make money by sucking bloods of others.
Welcome to Oncoflix podcast, where we demystify the myths of cancer. Today, we're going to dive into a topic which could affect every plate of our food, every sip of water we drink. The invisible threat of pesticides and its link to cancer. Did you know that there are 2.5 million tons of pesticides used in the world? They could be DDT, they could be glyphosates, and these pesticides are known to be a possible link to cancer. These have been designated as probable carcinogens by WHO. We are going to discuss about what impact the pesticides are going to make in our regular lives, whether it's overripe, and what are we going to do about it.
So in today's session, we want to bring to you the facts and myths that swirl around pesticides. We all know, yes, pesticides has been routinely used in our food. A lot of switch towards organic farming as well. But how do you know organic is organic? And are there issues related with organic farming? So we would be putting to you facts about the pesticide use, the healthcare impact. We have invited experts, which is our own farmers and our organic farmers, to bring to you the actual problem sheet. And then we discuss about what one can do about it.
So there are around 300 pesticides which are commonly used in India, and out of them, 30 are banned. And there have been a lot of epidemiological studies across the world which have probably classified pesticides as a risk factor to causation of cancer, like acute myeloid leukemia, non-Hodgkin's lymphomas, prostate cancers, and in some childhood leukemias as well. So, what are the healthcare impacts of pesticides and specific to cancer causation?
Yes, this is very true. So, for example, we used to use DDT before. Now it is banned. Chlorpyrifos, which is used, one of the most commonly used pesticide today, is already banned in few countries. So, what is okay today could be found as not okay tomorrow, which means there certainly is a certain risk which is associated with the common use of pesticide. When it comes to oncology, we have our own study that we are doing with respect to breast cancer, where we are trying to measure the pesticide content in this cancer tissue. Why are we doing this? Everybody knows this, that organophosphorus pesticides are hormone mimic. And when you think of breast cancer, if you have to name a single risk factor, it is hormone imbalance, which is between estrogen and progesterone. So if you have too much of extra estrogen coming in from any source, it could affect the balance. And in case of pesticides, this itself could be that extra source of estrogen, and that is how it impacts breast cancer. And another theory that we have been fondly working for, of course, is with respect to the damage component. Pesticide is an irritant, irrespective of whatever it is. And with that repeated irritation, again, it is going to be the damage, which is what this whole series is about. And this has been associated with rectal cancers also. For example, if you think of it logically also, if somebody has a habit of constipation, not passing stools very regularly, now let's say he is consuming a food that is contaminated with a lot of pesticide. Now all this is going to go and get accumulated in the motion pipe, and the contact time with the rectal tissue is going to be more if has a constipation habit. And that contact time means increased exposure to irritant. And this is how exactly pesticide impacts oncology. I've named two common cancers that we have seen impact with, but there could be so much more. Okay. Just like how you named the leukemias, the lymphomas. It is an irritant. Wherever it goes and accumulates, this is possibly an effect. And the evidence that a certain pesticides used before has been banned now, and what is used now is banned elsewhere, stands proof to this.
Yeah, it is a multifactorial disease. Again, it is a cellular war where pesticide could act as one of the risk factors. Though there is no conclusive evidence, and it is also classified as possible carcinogen. Okay, and it is not yet proven to be an actual causation of cancer. From a public perspective, out of the 300 pesticides, there could be classifications like surface pesticides and systemic pesticides. What that means is surface pesticides are just on the surface. Systemic pesticides are the ones which gets accumulated in the whole fruit or vegetable you eat. That is very, very important to be understood, because surface pesticides, sometimes you just wash it, you can just eliminate those pesticides, but some you may not be able to completely eliminate from the fruit itself because it is sitting inside the fruit. Yeah, or vegetable. Yeah, this is a very important perspective. And in fact,
when we talk of surface, one way is probably you can peel it, you get rid of it. But when you talk of this washing, there is another classification wherein whether it easily goes off when you wash it, is it moderately difficult or is it very difficult? So from a public perspective, again, this is going to be making so much sense. For example, my mother, in her major portion of her cooking, goes into washing. Now, if that food has been made with a pesticide that is probably moderately soluble or very less soluble, even that extra time that she spends washing is not going to get rid of those pesticides. So from a public perspective, this makes so much difference. So if pesticide is present in our everyday food, how do you know whether it is there? Is there a regulation for the content? How does this happen?
So I think there is regulations in every country. Like in India as well, we have Integrated Pesticide Control Act 1968. And there's also like Export Control Regulation Act as well. So in the Integrated Pesticide Control Act, they educate the farmers about using resistant crops to certain insects. There is also like using biopesticides, like for example, neem.
Yeah.
There's also mechanical barriers as well. It is also about educating farmers of using certain pesticides during a specific season as well.
Where that is see that the pest may be
exactly. There is also like Export Regulation Act, wherein when you export a certain fruits or vegetables, there is a very strict criteria from the country where where the fruits or vegetables are going to reach. So even with India, there is something called as maximal permissible limit of a certain pesticides, and in every country there is banned pesticides. So if at all a certain criteria is not met, then probably we will also reject or they will also reject. So this is absolutely important.
So, for example, let's say I'm a farmer, I'm going to export a certain crop. So, that is going to be measured for certain pesticide and for the content.
Exactly.
But that means every crop that is going to be imported is tested. Yes. So, if we implicate the same rule into the local circulation of food as well, how strict is the regulation? Do they measure this maximal permissible limit, let's say on a day-to-day basis?
So there is also a regulation called Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. It's called FSSAI. So if you see, when you take a packaged food, there is always a FSSAI logo.
Yeah.
So that is absolutely important. So what it implies is the FSSAI looks into the maximal permissible limit of pesticides as well. But if you buy some loose fruits or non-packaged food without the FSSAI logo, there is no mention. But the FSSAI doesn't conduct a daily check. Probably they'll have periodic checks where they evaluate, and they have certain affiliated laboratories in probably every tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities where they evaluate and they check for the maximal permissible limits of pesticides and probably for the banned pesticides as well. So for the public, I think it's absolutely important, or from the user side, it's absolutely important when you buy the packaged food. It's always very important to see the FSSAI logo, so that it's kind of a certification for the public that okay, fine, there is some kind of a certification agency who has looked into this kind of a food, and it's safe for us to consume this food.
Yeah. So although the checks may not be at a day-to-day basis, at least it has happened periodically.
Exactly.
It would be better to go for something that is certified than go for something that is not certified, where you don't even know what content is there.
Totally.
Yeah. We've had good, insightful theoretical discussions on pesticides. But who better can tell us about pesticides than our own farmers?
So today we have with us Mr. Nagesh, who is from Chikballapur, Mr. Narayan Swami, and Mr. Rajkumar. So today we are going to discuss in depth with respect to what pesticide practices they have. ಸರ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಸಂತೋಷ ನಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಬಂದಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ. ಸೊ ನೀವು ಏನ್ ಬೆಳೆ ಬೆಳಿತೀರಾ ಸರ್, ಅಂಡ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಎಕರೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಳಿತೀರಾ ಅಂತ ನೀವು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿಕ್ಕೆ?
ನಾವು ಆಲೂಗಡ್ಡೆ ಬೆಳಿತೀವಿ,
ಓಕೆ,
ಕ್ಯಾಪ್ಸಿಕಮ್ ಬೆಳಿತೀವಿ, ಬೀನ್ಸ್ ಬೆಳಿತೀವಿ.
ನೀವು ಸರ್?
ನಮ್ದು ದಾಳಿಂಬೆ ಬೆಳಿತೀವಿ. 1982ರಿಂದ ನಾವು ದ್ರಾಕ್ಷಿ ಬೆಳಿತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ದಾಳಿಂಬೆ ಒಂದು 30 ಎಕರೆ ಈರುಳ್ಳಿ ದಾಳಿಂಬೆ ಇದೆ, ದ್ರಾಕ್ಷಿ ಒಂದು 10 ಎಕರೆ ಇದೆ. ನಾವು ಸುಮಾರು ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ದ್ರಾಕ್ಷಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ದಾಳಿಂಬೆ ಮೇನ್ ಬೆಳೆಗಳಾಗಿ ಬೆಳ್ಕೊಂಡ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ.
ಓಕೆ.
ಮತ್ತೆ ಈಗ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಕಾಮನ್ ಆಗಿ ಯಾವ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ ಸರ್ ಈಗ ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ?
ನಾವು ಇಮ್ಡಾಕ್ಲಾಪ್ರಿಡ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ, ಥೈಮೆಥಾಕ್ಸ್ಮಾ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಮತ್ತೆ ರೀಜೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅದು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಸ್ಪೈನೋಸೈಡ್ ಅಂತ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಸ್ಪೈನೆಟ್ರೋಮಾ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ.
ಸೊ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಒಂದು 6-7 ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ ಹೆಸರು ಹೇಳಿದೀರಾ. ಹೆಂಗೆ ನೀವು ಡಿಸೈಡ್ ಮಾಡುವುದು?
ಟ್ರಿಪ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಬರುತ್ತೆ,
ಓಕೆ.
ಟ್ರಿಪ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಬಂದಾಗ ಇಮ್ಡಾಕ್ಲಾಪ್ರಿಡ್ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು, ಇಲ್ಲಾಂದ್ರೆ ಫಿಪ್ರೋನಿಲ್ ಅಂತ ಅದನ್ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಥೈಮೆಥಾಕ್ಸ್ಮಾನು ಅದಕ್ಕೇನೆ. ಒಂದು ಕಾಯಿ ಕೊರಕ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹುಳ ಅಂತ ಬಂದಾಗ ಸ್ಪೈನೋಸೈಡ್ ಅಂತ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಸ್ಪೈನೆಟ್ರೋಮಾ ಅಂತ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಅದನ್ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಕೊಲೆಂಟ್ರಾನಿಲಿಪ್ರೋಲ್ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಅದನ್ನ ಬಳಸ್ತೀವಿ.
ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್.
2000 ತನಕ ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ಸ್ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಇರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಈಚೆನೆ ಈ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ಸ್ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಕಂಪ್ನಿದು ನಾವೇನೋ ಓದ್ತೀವಿ, ಅಂಗಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, ಅವರು ನೋಡು ಎಲೆ ಚುಕ್ಕೆ ರೋಗ ಬಂದದೆ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಬೂದಿ ಬಂದೈತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಹುಳು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇದು ತಗೊಂಡೋಗ್ರಿ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗೈತೆ ಅಂತಾರೆ.
ಸೊ ಕಂಪ್ನಿ ಅವರೇ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ,
ಅವ್ರೇ ಅಂಗಡಿಯವರೇ ಅವರೇ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅವರು ಇಲ್ಲ ಒಳ್ಳೇದಾದ್ರೂ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು, ಇಲ್ಲ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಬೆಲೆದು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಬೆಲೆ ಕೇಳಿ ಇದರಿಂದ ತಗೊಂಡೋಗಿ ನೀವು ಸ್ಪ್ರೇ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ರೋಗ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಬರ್ತದೆ, ನೀವು ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಬೆಳೆ ಬೆಳಿಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ರೆಕಮೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ನಾವು ರೈತರು ನಂಬ್ತೀವಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದಂತ. ಅದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಒಳ್ಳೇದು ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ಬರ್ತದೆ, ಕೆಟ್ಟದ್ದು ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ಬರ್ತದೆ.
ಸೊ ಈ ಕಾಲಿಫ್ಲವರು, ಕ್ಯಾಬೇಜು, ಈ ವೆಜಿಟೇಬಲ್ಸ್ ಬೆಳೆಸುವಾಗ ತುಂಬಾ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ಸ್ ಹಾಕ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತಾನೆ ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಓದಿದ್ದೆ. ಸೊ ನಿಮ್ ಅನುಭವ, ನೀವು 20 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ಫಾರ್ಮಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ, ನಿಮ್ ಅನುಭವದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದು ಸತ್ಯನಾ, ಇಲ್ಲಾಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾವ ತರ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸಸ್ ಅನ್ವಯಿಸ್ತೀರಾ ನೀವು?
ಇದು ನಿಜಾನೇ. ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಕ್ಯಾಬೇಜು, ಕಾಲಿಫ್ಲವರ್, ಕ್ಯಾಪ್ಸಿಕಮ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡುವಂತ ವೆಜಿಟೇಬಲ್ಸ್ ಇದೇನೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಫಾರ್ಮಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ.
ಓಕೆ.
ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕೆಲವೆಲ್ಲ ಇದಾವೆ, ಕ್ಯಾರೆಟ್, ಬೀಟ್ರೂಟ್, ಮುಲ್ಲಂಗಿ, ನೌಕೋಲು, ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಬೇಗ ಮುಗಿತವೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಭೂಮಿ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀವಿ.
ಓಕೆ.
ಸೊ ನೀವು ಆ ತರನೇ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಸರ್?
ಹೌದು ಮೇಡಮ್. ಈಗ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಭೂಮಿಯಿಂದ ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ, ಭೂಮಿಯಿಂದ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಬೆಳೆಗಳು ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿಗೆ ರೋಗ ಬರಕ್ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇರಲ್ಲ. ಕಾರಣ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಫೆಸಿಲಿಟಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಕೊಡಲ್ಲ. ಬರೀ ಗೊಬ್ಬರಗಳನ್ನ ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿ ಕೊಡೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಭೂಮಿಯಿಂದ ತಳಗಡೆ ಬೆಳೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ತರಕಾರಿ ಆಗ್ಲಿ, ಕ್ಯಾರೆಟ್, ಬೀಟ್ರೂಟ್, ಆಲೂಗಡ್ಡೆ ಏನೇ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಅದು ನಮ್ಗೆ ತೊಂದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ನಮ್ಮ ಮನಸ್ಸಿಗೆಗಳು. ಈಗ ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಔಷಧಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಬಿಡ್ತದೆ. ಕೆಲವು ಈ ಕಾಲಿಫ್ಲವರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲೆ ಪದರಗಳಲ್ಲೇ ಬೇಕಾದಷ್ಟು ಔಷಧಿ ಇರ್ತದೆ, ಅದನ್ನೇ ಕಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಹೊಟ್ಟೆ ಹೋಗ್ತದೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ.
ಸರ್, ಈ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಹೊಡೆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಈ ಭೂಮಿಗೂ ಹಾನಿ ಆಗತ್ತಾ?
ಭೂಮಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಹಾನಿಕರ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್. ಈ ಮೇಲೆ ಬೆಳೆಯಂತ ಬೆಳೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಔಷಧಿ ಹೊಡೆದ್ರೆ ಭೂಮಿಗೆ ಏನು ಇದಿಲ್ಲ. ಭೂಮಿಗೆ ಹಾಕಂತ ಔಷಧಿಗಳು ಇರ್ತವೆ. ಕೆಲವಾರು ಔಷಧಿಗಳು ಏನು ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಕೆಲವಾರು ಭೂಮಿಗೆ ಹಾಕಂತ ಔಷಧಿ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ ಆ ಭೂಮಿನೂ ಕೆಟ್ಟೋಗ್ತದೆ.
ಕೆಲವಾರು ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಈಗ ಸುಮಾರು ವರ್ಷಗಳು ದ್ರಾಕ್ಷಿ ಬೆಳೀತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಈಗ ಹೊಸ ಮಣ್ಣು ತಗೊಂಡ್ ಹಾಕ್ತಿವಿ ಭೂಮಿಗೆ. ನಾವು ಅರ್ಧಡಿ ಮಣ್ಣು ಹಾಕಿ ತಿರ್ಗಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಚ್ತೀವಿ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಮಣ್ಣಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಅಂಶಗಳು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗಿರ್ತದೆ. ಹೊಸ ಮಣ್ಣು ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಬರ್ತದೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಭೂಮಿ ಬರ್ತಾ 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 ವೆನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ, ರಸಗೊಬ್ಬರ ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ಭೂಮಿ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗ್ತದೆ ಮಣ್ಣು. ಹೊಸ ಮಣ್ಣು ಮತ್ತೆ ಹೊಸದಾಗಿ ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಮಣ್ಣು ತಂದು ಹಾಕಿ ನಾವು ಬೆಳೆ ಬೆಳೆಸ್ಕೊತೀವಿ.
ಆಯ್ತು. ನಮ್ಗೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಇದೆ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ನಿಯರ್ ಬೈ ಫಾರ್ಮರ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಈ ತರ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಏನು ಇದೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ? ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ ಹಾಕುವಾಗ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಪೆಸ್ಟ್ ಏನು ಬರಲ್ಲ, ಆ ತರ ಒಂದು ಐಡಿಯಾ ಏನು ಇರತ್ತಾ? ಸೊ ಅದಿಂದ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ ಹಾಕಕ್ಕೆ ಚಾನ್ಸಸ್ ಇದೆಯಾ?
70% ಫಾರ್ಮರ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. 34% ಫಾರ್ಮರ್ಸ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ.
ಆಯ್ತು,
ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಇರ್ತದೆ.
ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡಿರೋದು ತಿಳಿದೇ ಇರೋರು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ
ಇದ್ದಾರೆ.
ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡಿರೋ 30% ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಇನ್ 70% ತಿಳ್ಕೊಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು.
ಇನ್ನೊಂದು, ಇವಾಗ ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು ನೀವು ಗ್ರೇಪ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ, ವೆಜಿಟೇಬಲ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ, ಏರ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಹತ್ರ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ ನೀವು. ಸೊ ಇವಾಗ ನೀವು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು. ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ US ಗೆ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಾಂದ್ರೆ ದುಬೈಗೆ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಾಂದ್ರೆ ಯುರೋಪ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಟ್ ಕ್ರೈಟೀರಿಯಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಇದೇ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು, ಇಷ್ಟು ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ ಬ್ಯಾನ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ನೀವು ಇವಾಗ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು, ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಕಂಪನಿ ಯಾವ್ದೋ ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಬಂದು ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ನಿಮಗೆ ಆತರ ಏನ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೀರಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಇದೇ ಕ್ವಾಲಿಟಿ ಇರ್ಬೇಕು, ಇದೇ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು, ಈ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ಸ್ ಬ್ಯಾನ್ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಇದ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಏನು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂತ ಏನೋ ಇದೆಯಾ?
ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ರೈತರಿಗೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಇಲ್ಲ.
ಓಕೆ.
ಆಮೇಲೆ ಇದುವರೆಗೂ ನಾವು ಆತರ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪರ್ಟ್ ಯಾವ್ದು ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ.
ಓಕೆ.
ಮತ್ತೆ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋರು ನೀವು ಈ ತರ ಯಾವ್ದು ಸ್ಪ್ರೇ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅಂತ ಏನು ಕೇಳೋದು ಇಲ್ಲ. ನೋಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬೆಳೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗೈತಾ ತಗೊಳ್ತಾರೆ.
ಓಕೆ.
ನಾವು ಬೆಳೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗ್ ಬಂದದ ಬಟ್ರೆ ನಾವೇನ್ ಇಂತ ಔಷಧಿ ಹೊಡೆದಿದೀವಿ, ಇಂತ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ಸ್ ಹೊಡಿಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂತೂ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ.
ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಿಂದ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಮಹಾರಾಷ್ಟ್ರದಿಂದ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ 2 ಮಾನ್ಸೂನ್ ಬರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಪೆಸ್ಟ್ ಡಿಪೆಂಡೆನ್ಸ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಮಹಾರಾಷ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಸೌತ್ ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾನ್ಸೂನ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ನಾರ್ತ್ ಈಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾನ್ಸೂನ್ ಇರಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ.
ವೆರಿ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್.
ಸೊ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, ಈಗ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಂಪಲ್ಸರಿ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾವ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀರಾ, ಎಷ್ಟು ರೆಸಿಡ್ಯೂ ಇದೆ, ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಲೋಕಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಮ್ಯಾನುಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಚರ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಆತರ ಚೆಕಿಂಗ್ ಏನು ನಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ?
ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕ್ತೀರಾ, ನಾವು ಸೂಪರ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಇಂದ ತಗೋತೀರಿ, ಆತರ ಚೆಕಿಂಗ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್
ರೆಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಷನ್ ಇಲ್ಲ.
ನಿಮ್ಮಿಂದ ಟ್ರೇಡರ್ಸ್ ತಗೋವಾಗ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ತಗೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ.
ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗೆ ಇವರು ಟ್ರೇಡರ್ಸ್, ನಾವು ಬೆಳೆ ಬೆಳಿತೀವಿ, ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಬೆಳೆ ಕ್ವಾಲಿಟಿ ಇದ್ರೆ ಇವ್ರು ಪರ್ಚೇಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ತಗೊಂಡೋಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಇವರು ನಮ್ಮನ್ನೇನ್ ರಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ, ಅವ್ರಿಗೂ ಯಾವ್ದು ರಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಷನ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಬೆಳೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗೈತೆ.
ಸೊ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಕ್ವಾಲಿಟಿ ನೀವು ಹೆಂಗೆ ಡಿಸೈಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ?
ವೆರಿ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್.
ಈ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ ಇದೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದೊಂದು ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ ನೀವು ನೀರಲ್ಲಿ ವಾಶ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗನು ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ, ಒಂದೊಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ರೆಸಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ತುಂಬಾ ರೆಸಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಬಟ್ ನೀವು ಹಾಕುವುದು ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಹಾಕುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸಪೋಸ್ ನಿಮಗೆ ಆತರ ಒಂದು ನಾಲೆಜ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಈ ತರ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಆಗಿ ನೀರಲ್ಲಿ ವಾಶ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ, ನಿಮಗೂ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ನೆಸ್ ಇದೆ, ಪೆಸ್ಟ್ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ಗೆ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ನೆಸ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರಾಬಬ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಅದನ್ನೇ ಪ್ರಿಫರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಲ್ವಾ?
ಹೌದು, ದಾರಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಗೆ ರೈತರಿಗೆ.
ನಾವು ರೈತರು ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ಸ್ ಅಂಗಡಿಗೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ತಗೊಂಡೋಗಿ ಹೊಡಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅದರಿಂದ ಪ್ರಾಣನೇ ಹೋಗ್ತದ ಇಲ್ಲ ಒಳ್ಳೇದೇ ಆಗ್ತದ.
ನಮ್ಗೆ
ಬೆಳೆ ಬೆಳಿಬೇಕು
ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ನಮ್ಗೆ ರೋಗ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಸಾಕು, ಏನಾದ್ರು
ದೇಹ ಒಂದೇ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸರ್ ಬರ್ತದ ಇಲ್ಲ ಇನ್ನೊಂದ್ ಬರ್ತದ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ನಾನ್ ಬೆಳೆ ಬೆಳಿಬೇಕಷ್ಟೇ.
ಅಷ್ಟೇ.
ಸರ್ ಇವಾಗ ಈ ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್ ಹೊಡಿತಾರಲ್ಲ
ಹ್ಮ್.
ಅವ್ರಿಗೂ ತುಂಬಾ ರಿಸ್ಕ್ ಇದೆಯಂತೆ. ನಾವು ತಿನ್ನೋದ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಪೆಸ್ಟಿಸೈಡ್
100%
ಹೊಡಿಯೋರು
ಸತ್ಯ.
ಹೌದೌದು.
ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಏನ್ ಪ್ರಿಕಾಷನ್ಸ್ ತಗೋಬೇಕು, ಯಾವ ತರ
Skin ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಳಗಡೆ
ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು,
ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ,
ಓಕೆ,
Skin ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಒಳಗಡೆಗೆ.
ಪ್ರೊಟೆಕ್ಟಿವ್
ಹೌದು,
ಮೆಜರ್
ಹೌದು.
ಏನ್ ಹಾಕೋಬೇಕು ಅದು ತಿಳುವಳಿಕೆ ತುಂಬಾ ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್.
ಈಗ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಸರ್, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
ಈಗ ಇದುವರೆಗೂ
ಈಗ ಬರ್ತಾ
ಅವ್ರು ಏನು ರಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಷನ್ ತಗೊಂತಾನೆ ಇರಲ್ಲ. ಈಗ ನನ್ ತಮ್ಮನೇ ಔಷಧಿ ಹೊಡಿತಾನೆ, ಏನಿಲ್ಲ,
ಮಾಸ್ಕ್ ಹಾಕುವುದು, ಗ್ಲೌ
ಮಾಸ್ಕ್
ಹಾಕುವುದು
ಹಾಕ್ತಾರೆ.
ಏನು
ಈಗ
ಇಲ್ಲ.
ಹಾಕ್ತಾರಷ್ಟೇ.
ಹ್ಮ್.
ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಪ್ರಚಾರ ಆಯ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಈ ವಾಸನೆ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದು ಇಲ್ಲ ಮೈ ಮೇಲೆ ಬಿದ್ರೆ ಸ್ಕಿನ್ ಗೆ ಅಪಾಯ ಆಗ್ತದೆ ಅಂದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಈಗ ಇದುವರೆಗೂ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ.
ಸರ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಸಂತೋಷ ನಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಬಂದಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ. ಜೈ ಜವಾನ್ ಜೈ ಕಿಸಾನ್ ಅಂತೀರಿ. ಸೊ ನಮ್ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ ನ ರೈತರಿಂದ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದಿರಿ. ಓಕೆ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಆಶೀರ್ವಾದ. ಓಕೆ, ಈ ಎಜುಕೇಟಿವ್ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಇನ್ನೂ ಜನರಿಗೆ ತಿಳುವಳಿಕೆ ಕೊಡ್ಲಿ, ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸರ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ತಿಳುವಳಿಕೆ ಕೊಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀರಿ. ತುಂಬಾ ತುಂಬಾ ಸಂತೋಷ ನೀವು ಬಂದದಕ್ಕೆ, ನಿಮ್ ಟೈಮ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ನಿಮ್ ಊರಿಂದ ಬಂದು ನಮಗೆ ಈ ಜೆನ್ಯುನ್ ರೈತರ ಕಷ್ಟ ಮತ್ತೆ ಅನುಭವಗಳು ತಿಳಿಸ್ಕೊಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ತುಂಬಾ 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 ಸಂತೋಷ. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
Thank you so much.
Today we have our special guest, Mr. Sri Prakash, who is an author for Building Blocks. He is also a consultant and most importantly, an organic farmer, which is going to be a topic of discussion today.
So, Sri Prakash, we know you've had a soaring career, about 2 decades in IT, marketing, and so on. And we know a lot of firms with which you worked with, leading ones. So, what made you take that decision?
See, it was in the year 2014 where I wanted to start farming. It was kind of passion for some time, but 2014 I decided that, okay, let me do it. But unfortunately, I was not having enough money to buy a farmland where I can get into farming. So someone gave me this piece of advice that if your passion is something, you will find time for it and you will find money for it. The reason why I got into organic farming is specifically due to my eating habits of I hog on to mangoes during the seasons.
Okay.
And however careful you are, you will end up buying mangoes which are ripened using calcium carbide.
Okay.
And that will ensure that 1 week of my precious time goes into a problem solution approach of either addressing dysentery or food poison or whatever you call it. And that made me sure that when I start farming, I will definitely do a natural farming or an organic farming.
Okay. So during this course of organic farming for so many years, has there been a thought that, okay, fine, I will shift into traditional farming rather than organic farming?
No. Once you see the impact of using chemicals and fertilizers, you will definitely not have the thought of getting back into the chemical based farming. But for that, the most important thing what you need to have is the financial security, especially in the initial years. In the initial years, if you think that, okay, because when I bought the piece of land, it was not a natural farming land. The person from whom I had bought was been into using chemicals. So you will have to spend at least an year and a half in terms of converting your land which is suitable for organic farming or for natural farming.
Convert the soil into a
Yeah. See, even in your childhood, one of the things that you would have learned in your science class is that earthworm is farmer's best friend.
correct.
And you would have also been taught in your school that how the osmosis process works when you put NaCl, which you call it as common salt, on an earthworm, the water just comes out and the earthworm dies. The same way, when you put urea, the earthworm dies.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, what happens is that your natural process in which the nitrogen needs to be fixed in the soil goes off. So, and then you use multiple things to bring in that porosity in the soil by using gypsum. So what you do is that you do a lot of chemicals, starting from killing a grass, you use an herbicide.
Right.
Correct.
So when I was learning my farming with shallots, what I realized is that at least 10 different kind of chemicals are used for farming a shallot in a normal farming, where starting from getting the size to getting the pinkish color in your shallot, you use chemicals. If you see that firsthand, you will never touch any of the shallots which are available in the market.
So in our interaction with the farmers, we had a very insightful discussion that, anything that is grown above the ground, like cauliflower or cabbage, the amount of pesticide that is thrown over it is huge. So what do you use in organic as an alternate to it?
See, when it comes to pesticide, I actually did a course in Nammarwar Institute before stepping my foot in the farm.
Okay.
So in the crash course, what was told is that there are herbs which has got a nice smell. There are herbs which have got that kadwi taste, and there are herbs which has got that slimy stuff with them, or the milky stuff in them. You just need to put all the three together in cow urine, and you have to do the fermentation process and then spray it on plants. So which will ensure that you don't kill the insects. You will drive away certain insects.
So it's
So
a repellent kind.
it's a repellent kind of stuff. Typically what happens is that I also attended a course which says that insects are your friends. Typically we use a lot of insecticide to kill a mosquito. But what dies first is the dragonfly, which eats the mosquitoes.
Okay.
So what happens is that in insects also, there are insects which are farmers' friends. Whenever you use this pesticides or insecticides, the farmers' friends are the ones which are first killed. So what I was also advised is that to keep that hill mango, which we call it as kilawai in Tamil, as a fence.
Okay.
So where the insects can come and feed on it and grow. So it doesn't come into your farm and kill things.
Because it has already got what it wants.
It gets what it wants, and the natural insects, the friends insects will actually kill the non-friendly ones automatically. But typically, when we use insecticides and pesticides, we kill the friends first and ensure that the enemies are actually stayed in the farm itself. A perfect example could be like if you see a cockroach at home, a big cockroach, try to spray hit on it. You will find that cockroach would definitely lay egg before it dies. So all the insects, when they are exposed to insecticide, will at least lay 50 to 100 eggs before they die. So your insecticide is not going to kill the eggs.
Now I have two questions here. One is, if the costing of production is not very different, if the yield is not going to be bad than traditional farming, why is there an increased price tag? A. B is, when they claim it is organic, how do you really know it's organic?
See, I was told that to know whether a farm is organic, when you step into that farm, you will find a spider web.
Okay.
That's the first sign that you have not used any chemicals in your farm. But it is very difficult for a common man to know whether the produce which has come into his house is an organic or not organic.
Is there a certification system or anything available?
Like, for example, you say FSSAI, kind of a print on the back of a cover. Okay. Is there some kind of a, regulatory body wherein, you go to a consumer goes to a supermarket, okay, and he sees organic as well as the regular rice packets. So do you have kind of absolute surety, okay, fine, this is an authentic, organic material which I'm going to be taking home, cooking and eating. So, a sense of, satisfaction that, okay, fine, I'm absolutely sure that this is an organic farm.
Since you are a doctor, you would know that calcium carbide was banned in India for any ripening purpose in the year 2011.
Correct.
And in 2024, 2025, as last year and this year, you just search on the web, you will find n number of articles which says that please don't use calcium carbide for ripening. That means that though you have banned, there is still leakage.
Yeah.
In the same way, there are multiple leakages at multiple fronts. End of the day, I see the farmer next to my farm just injecting something on the raw bananas and sending it to the market so that it doesn't get ripened on the way.
So end of the
And
day,
at the end of the day, when you get to the godown over here, you again use something like an ethylene gas to ensure that the ripening process is quickened.
right.
So it is
Possible to know that organic is organic.
Because there are certain genuine certification, but there are also certification which is at a price tag.
Right.
Yeah, I think price tag is
The price tag is a constraint over here.
Right. At a regulatory level, probably based on our discussion, it would be wonderful to know whether your organic is really organic.
Exactly.
Just like how we discussed, if we can have a certification behind our packets only saying that this is how it was grown, there is a way that this has been quantified, it would be amazing. Although it could be a long-term thought.
See, that is also a problem. See, for example, quite a good amount of organic stuff which is produced in the country are exported.
Right.
And there is a little which is left. And that little comes into the market. Everyone claims them to be organic. I, in fact, met farmer who said that I'm an organic farmer, but he uses urea at the initial stage and he uses some pesticide when the plant grows. After that, he becomes organic. That is not organic at all.
Right. So is there a export regulation when you said majority of this is being exported?
Yeah, there are quite a good amount of stuff which is getting exported. At least 85 to 90% of the organic produce gets exported.
Right. So do they have a way of testing?
Yeah, they have a way of testing.
But that may not be implemented in the local.
That may not be implemented in the local level.
Right. And end of the day, when it comes to a farming practice, today if I go tell them you switch to organic farming, your yield will be doubled. Your profit will be tripled. They may be okay with doing it because end of the day, it's their
but you can't show them in the first 6 months to a year for sure.
No, my point here was, so if you say that the adoption rate may be higher, but when you say this may cause a health issue, which is serious, and we are not, protecting the health of the next generation, the adoption rate may not be as high or impactful as saying that.
People are least bothered about what happens to your health.
Exactly.
If people think at least once, can I actually, if the way in which you see cauliflower, once they pluck it itself, they soak it in a chemical to ensure that the flower doesn't get spoiled. Because the cauliflower, what you see in the market is at least 10 to 12 days old. The minimum.
Correct.
So it is soaked in chemical which comes over here. And if you tell them like, okay, don't soak it in chemical, and the flower will just wither out. So I'm least bothered about what happens to my surrounding. And that could be the selfish culture, which we've been taught in the school itself. The rank one student will always be celebrated, and the last rank will be always called as a backbencher.
I think in our country, we have been, in a process of rapid development. Government taking initiatives and probably a little bit of policy tweaks to probably, give subsidies to organic farmers. I mean, making some education policy and trying to educate them about crop rotation or probably using bio fencings like what you've advocated. Probably, they cannot shift in from a traditional practice directly to organic farming. So probably a kind of a change in mindset where they can adopt certain practices of organic farming and reduce the usage of enhancers to the soil or pesticides could be a mind shift.
See, there is a good amount of initiative which has been done by the government. You will also find a lot of smart minds in Krishi Vigyan Kendras who are willing to come and help out. But that is one part. There is also another part which wants to make money in everything.
And there is peer pressure also. For example, a farmer next is seeing a lot of yield and you are adopting.
No, I'm not even coming into that. For example, in a society, you are giving a neem manure.
Right.
Are you giving a genuine neem manure? No.
Right.
You wanted to mix in that and you want to make profit in it. So though there are schemes, there are bandicoot rats at every stage who wants to make money by sucking bloods of others.
Exactly.
And so that is something which is spoiling the good schemes to not reach the beneficiary.
So you have had such experience in organic farming. If you have to give some kind of a message to the farmers and also the consumers from an organic farming perspective, what would the message be?
See, to the farmer, I would say that would you be happy to give your produce to an infant baby at home? If you are 100% satisfied in giving your produce to an infant baby, then you can sell that produce to the market.
Okay.
Because you know the amount of chemicals what you are putting in your farm, which the consumers might not know. Try to differentiate between what is a myth and what is a reality. As long as you guys are going to believe in myths, you will never be able to see the real situation on the ground.
Perfect. I think that's why we started off this show, to demystify certain myths. Okay, give education to people of what the reality is, and try to, like, create an impact. It was such a wonderful experience interacting with you. Okay, thanks for sharing your knowledge, and we would thank you again, for sparing your time to come on the show.
Thank you, Dr. Reddy, and thank you, Krithika, for inviting me for your show. Sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Thanks.
Krithika. Wow, what insightful discussions. The problem statement has been defined very clearly. So, end of the day, what is the solution to this?
I think the most two glaring aspects after such extensive discussions and purviews of the organic farming as well as the real, farmers. So the two aspects is, one is the regulation aspect. If you see in the US, there is something called as EWG, which gives a kind of dirty dozen and clean 15 for fruits and vegetables.
What does that mean?
So that means the pesticide control, or the maximal permissible limit, is regulated by the US FDA and the Agricultural Authority of the US. So where they give the top 12 highly pesticide impacted fruits or vegetables.
Pesticide fruits.
Exactly.
The
dirty dozen. And then they give the clean 15. So probably the maximal permissible limit is a lot lower.
Right.
So it is much safer for the public.
Yeah. So something similar to what our farmers told as well.
Correct.
Probably this has not been propagated as a regulatory rule, but they know it that, the ones that grow under the soil are less contaminated and probably naturally organic.
And one other thing what we could do is, in India, if you see the FSSAI, it only conducts a periodic check. So probably they could do it on a weekly checks, or some kind of, they could give some kind of, the dirty dozen or the clean 15 fruits, which can be like a guiding limit for public as well. So, and also an education for the farmers as well. So they will start probably using, other modes of pesticides, which could have a lot lesser impact to the overall health of the public. And that is impactful as well.
For example, if farmers start using more water-soluble pesticides, which are effective for them also, eventually, if you watch it, it will go. At a user end, I would love to see that, behind my packet, if they mention that this was the pesticide used, this was the maximal permissible limit, and if you watch this for 5 minutes, probably 80% of it will go off, right? So at a regulatory level, if that has to happen, certainly, as you told, farmers have to be educated. We have to choose our pesticide. Obviously,
Exactly.
300 pesticides are available, but do you really require it? Is the question.
I think the government has taken responsibility. They have created guidelines, they've created regulations as well. But a more stricter regulations could create more impact as well. Knowing that WHO has classified pesticides as the probable carcinogens as well. And one other user tip for the public is, if you get veggies and fruits in your local supermarket, you can just use baking soda and probably rinse it or soak it for 15 minutes. And then if you start using the veggies or fruits, probably the risk of pesticide consumption is going to be a lot lesser, and probably 80 to 90% of your pesticides are going to be like eliminated completely.
True. So this practice would probably eliminate both the easily water soluble and the moderate water soluble ones, but not the non-water soluble, even soda bicarbonate.
That is why I was talking about the 80-90%. So probably 10% could be the systemic ones.
Again, it depends on the pesticide that they have used also. Now, there is always a yin and yang, right? So we talk about washing vegetables very well. but we've also been taught that the water soluble vitamins can be easily lost even with a simple act of washing. So, we have to strike a balance somewhere where you know that you can easily get rid of the contaminants while you still can, preserve the nutrients that is supposed to be there.
I totally agree. I think it's a balance. So, with respect to usage of pesticides and the output of the crop as well, even for the farmers and even for the users as well. So there's always the balance. So with this, episode, I think there still needs to be more amount of epidemiological studies to conclude or to come to a absolute risk evaluation for pesticides to be the causative factor for cancer. Right now, it could be considered as a risk factor, but we are not absolutely sure whether it is the factor causing cancer. I think we as oncologists know that cancer is a multifactorial disease, and probably a lot of education, a lot of regulations, and with simple practices from an individual perspective can create an impact in reducing the risks of pesticides on the overall health of the public.
Yeah, I think this whole session has been wonderful, amazing. Although we started it for a public awareness, at a personal level, I think it has been a very insightful and awareness session for myself as well.
Totally, it's the same for me as well. Thank you.
Thank you.